That night, under a full moon, they entered the thick forest. Olivia was told to undress completely. Her grandmother handed her a native clay pot decorated with red symbols. "You will call his name," Mama Afika commanded. "Say his name until the spirits hear you." "Nah, Frank, Frank, Frank," Olivia cried, her voice echoing through the darkness. As she chanted, a cold wind swept through the forest. The pot vibrated in her hands. Mama Afika whispered incantations. Suddenly, a small flame appeared inside the pot. The ritual was complete. The sun melted gently over the skyline of Lagos, painting the city gold. Tricia stood by the balcony of her apartment, her long braids dancing in the evening breeze. She smiled as she watched cars crawl along the busy road below. Life was beautiful. Love was sweeter. Her phone vibrated. It was Frank. "Baby, I'm outside," he said, his voice deep and soothing. She giggled like a little girl, ran to the mirror, and checked her reflection. She wore a soft pink gown, her favorite perfume lingering in the air. Within seconds, she was downstairs. Frank stepped out of his sleek black Range Rover, dressed in a white kaftan that shimmered under the sunset. His smile could melt ice. "Tricia, every time I see you, I fall in love all over again," he said, opening his arms. She laughed shyly. "And you never get tired of saying that." "Never," he said, pulling her into a warm embrace. Their love had blossomed for 2 years. Frank, a young millionaire entrepreneur, had everything: wealth, charm, and humility. Tricia, a marketing executive, had beauty, intelligence, and grace. Together, they were the picture of perfection. They talked about their wedding almost every evening, where it would hold, the color of the decor, and who would stand by them as best man and chief bridesmaid. That night, as they ate dinner by candlelight, Frank said softly, "You know, I can't wait to meet your best friend. You always talk about Olivia like she's your sister." Tricia smiled innocently. "Oh, you'll love her. She's fun, loyal, and she's already promised to be my chief bridesmaid." Frank smiled back, unaware that that single conversation would become the beginning of his downfall. As they laughed and clinked their glasses, somewhere far away in the shadows of fate, jealousy stirred. 2 weeks later, Tricia introduced Frank to her best friend, Olivia. Olivia was stunning, curvy, fair-skinned, and sharp-tongued. The kind of beauty that walked into a room and owned it. When Frank arrived at Tricia's apartment, Olivia was already there, wearing a fitted yellow dress. The moment their eyes met, Olivia's lips curved into a subtle smile. It wasn't the smile of admiration, it was the smile of possession. "Frank, meet my best friend, Olivia," Tricia said excitedly. "Olivia, this is the man I've been telling you about." Olivia extended her hand with calculated charm. "Ah, so this is the famous Frank. Tricia, you're a lucky woman." Frank laughed politely. "Nice to meet you, Olivia." But as the evening went on, Olivia's gaze lingered too long. She complimented Frank excessively, laughed at all his jokes, and occasionally touched his arm as she spoke. Tricia, blinded by love and trust, didn't notice. But Olivia's heart burned with desire. That night, as Olivia drove home, her mind was a battlefield. Why should Tricia have everything? The beauty, the man, the happiness? By midnight, her decision was made. She would not just admire Frank. She would own him. And to make that happen, she would go where no one dared, back to her grandmother's shrine in the village. The next morning, Olivia packed a small bag and lied to Tricia that she was visiting her sick uncle. The journey to her village was long and dusty. As she arrived, crows hovered above the trees, and the evening breeze felt heavy. The villagers still feared her grandmother, Mama Afika, known as the woman who speaks with spirits. When Olivia entered the hut, the air smelled of smoke and dry herbs. Mama Afika looked up slowly, her eyes cloudy with age. "My daughter, it's been long. What brings you to my shrine this time?" Olivia knelt down. "Mama, I want a man, but he belongs to someone else. I want him to love only me." The old woman studied her for a moment, then nodded. "It can be done, but it comes with a price." "I'll pay it," Olivia said eagerly. That night, under a full moon, they entered the thick forest. Olivia was told to undress completely. Her grandmother handed her a native clay pot decorated with red symbols. "You will call his name," Mama Afika commanded. "Say his name until the spirits hear you." "Nah, Frank, Frank, Frank," Olivia cried, her voice echoing through the darkness. As she chanted, a cold wind swept through the forest. The pot vibrated in her hands. Mama Afika whispered incantations. Suddenly, a small flame appeared inside the pot. The ritual was complete. Mama Afika smiled. "From this night, his heart belongs to you. But remember, what is taken by force never ends in peace." Olivia ignored the warning. All she saw was victory. The night after Olivia returned from the village, Lagos was unusually still. The rain had just stopped, and the streets glistened under the streetlights. Frank sat alone in his living room, staring blankly at the TV. Tricia had just left after dinner, but something inside him felt strange. He ran his fingers through his hair and sighed. "What's wrong with me?" he murmured. Moments later, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Olivia. "Olivia, hey, hope you got home safe. I had fun the other day. You're such a vibe-relieved face." Frank smiled unconsciously. He didn't know why her message made his chest warm. He quickly typed back, "You're quite the talkative yourself." But the moment he hit send, he felt a sting of guilt. Why am I texting her? He thought. She's Tricia's best friend. He tried to shake it off. But that night, when he closed his eyes, he dreamt of Olivia, her smile, her voice, her perfume. He woke up sweating, confused, and restless. The next day, he called Tricia, but his voice lacked its usual spark. She noticed. "Baby, are you okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah, just tired," he lied. But deep inside, a shadow had already entered his heart. Days turned into weeks. Olivia became a constant presence, always around, always available. She visited Tricia's home often, pretending to help with wedding plans. But her eyes never left Frank. One afternoon, when Tricia stepped out to take a call, Olivia leaned closer to Frank. Her voice was soft, her tone dangerous. "Frank," she whispered, "why do you always avoid looking at me?" He froze. "Olivia, don't start this." She smiled slowly. "You feel it too, don't you?" Frank stood, trying to walk away, but his steps felt heavy, as if invisible chains held him still. His pulse raced. His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, the world around them blurred. Olivia reached out and touched his hand. It was like a jolt of electricity. "Stop it," he said hoarsely, pulling back. But even as he left, his heart pounded, not in anger, but in confusion. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept hearing her voice, seeing her face, smelling her scent. By the third week, he found himself driving to her house just to talk. She opened the door, wrapped in a loose robe, her eyes glowing like fire. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I know," he replied. And then, silence. A silence heavy enough to drown reason. Moments later, the line between loyalty and desire shattered. After that night, everything changed. Frank tried to pretend nothing happened, but guilt haunted him. Every time Tricia called, he felt like a thief. Every time Olivia called, he felt trapped, yet drawn. Tricia began to notice. "Frank, you've been distant lately," she said one evening, holding his hand. He forced a smile. "Just work stress, baby. I'm fine." But in his eyes, something was dying, and Tricia could feel it. One evening, she stood by her window, staring at the skyline. The city lights blurred through her tears. "Lord," she whispered, "please don't let anything come between us." But somewhere across town, Olivia lay awake, smiling at her phone, whispering to herself, "He's mine now, forever." And from the dark corners of the unseen world, a shadowy laughter echoed faintly, the laughter of Mama Afika. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Frank's world became a blur, a web of confusion and guilt. Every time he looked at Tricia, a pang of shame stabbed through his chest. She was still the same, loving, caring, and faithful, but his heart was no longer steady. Something had taken hold of him, and it whispered Olivia's name every waking moment. He avoided Tricia more often now, giving excuses about work or travel. When she called, he sounded distracted. When she texted, he replied late or not at all. Tricia began to worry. One evening, she visited his office unannounced. The receptionist smiled nervously. "Ma, Oga Frank is, in a meeting," she stammered. But when Tricia looked through the glass wall, her heart froze. Olivia sat across Frank, laughing softly as she fed him cake. For a moment, the world stopped. Her hand trembled. "No, it can't be what I think." When Frank saw her reflection, he sprang to his feet. "Tricia," she forced a smile. "Oh, so this is the kind of meeting that keeps you busy lately?" Olivia smiled boldly. "Relax, dear. We were just celebrating his new contract." Tricia forced out a laugh. "Of course. How silly of me." But when she turned to leave, her heart shattered silently inside her chest. Later that night, Olivia and Frank met again. "Why did you come to my office?" Frank demanded. Olivia shrugged casually. "To surprise you." "Olivia, you almost ruined everything," he snapped. Her tone hardened. "Ruined what? You think she doesn't already suspect? You're mine now, Frank. Stop pretending." Frank rubbed his forehead. "I don't know what's happening to me. Every time I try to stay away from you, something drags me back." Olivia walked up to him slowly, resting her hand on his chest. "That's love, baby." But deep down, she knew it wasn't love. It was the charm working. She saw how restless he had become, how easily he obeyed her. She smiled to herself. The pot is working perfectly, she thought. But then, fear crept into her mind. What if Tricia finds out? And so, she came up with a final plan, something that would tie Frank to her forever. 2 weeks later, Olivia arrived at Frank's house looking pale and teary-eyed. "Frank, I need to tell you something." He frowned. "What's wrong?" She sniffed dramatically. "I'm pregnant." The words hit him like a thunderbolt. "What? Pregnant? Are you sure?" She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. He paced back and forth. "This can't be happening. Olivia, you know my wedding to Tricia is next month." She sobbed louder. "So what happens to me and your child? Will you throw us away like trash?" Frank froze. The guilt was unbearable. He sat down, burying his face in his hands. "Oh God, what have I done?" Olivia knelt beside him, her voice trembling. "You can still make this right. Marry me. Save your honor." Her words cut deep. Frank felt trapped, emotionally, spiritually, and morally. That night, he sat alone in his car, rain pouring on the windshield. He thought about Tricia, her laughter, her love, her trust. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered into the night. "I don't know how to fix this." The morning sun rose gently over the town of Enugu, painting the roofs in gold. Drums echoed from Tricia's family compound. Today was meant to be the happiest day of her life, her traditional marriage to Frank. Colorful canopies lined the yard, guests danced, women in bright wrappers moved about serving food and drinks. The air smelled of fried meat and palm wine. Laughter filled every corner. But amidst the joy, one thing was missing: the groom. Tricia sat in her room surrounded by friends and aunties, her hands trembling as they tied her gelly. On, Tricia, relax now," her cousin said. "You're shaking." She forced a smile. "I'm just excited." Her phone buzzed again. No missed calls, no messages. Frank hadn't called all morning. She brushed it off at first, believing he was caught up in preparations. But when hours passed, her smile began to fade. "Have you tried calling him?" her mother asked. "Yes, Mama. His number is switched off." The murmurs started spreading among the guests. "Where is the groom? Has he gone to fetch more items?" Abina Lagos traffic hold'em. The drummers grew tired. The sun began to fade. Still, no sign of Frank or his family. By evening, the music stopped completely. Tricia's father stepped out, his face dark with shame. "My people," he said in a trembling voice, "we don't know what happened, but it seems we must postpone the ceremony." A heavy silence fell. Guests began to leave, whispering. Tricia sat frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. Her mother knelt beside her, tears streaming. "My daughter, take heart. Maybe something delayed him." But deep down, Tricia knew something was terribly wrong. That night, the compound was quiet. The decorations still hung, mocking her pain. Tricia removed her gelly, her hands shaking. She whispered to herself, He can't do this to me. Not Frank. Her father entered the room gently. Tricia, we'll go to the city tomorrow. We need to find out what happened. She nodded weakly, tears falling down her cheeks. The next day, they arrived at Frank's house. The gate was half open. No cars moved in or out. Knock, her father said. Tricia hesitated, then pushed the door gently. What she saw made her knees buckle. Frank stood by the sitting room door, dressed in white pajamas, holding Olivia, who wore a silk robe, her hair still damp from the shower. Both froze at the sight of Tricia and her parents. Frank, Tricia's voice trembled. What's going on? Olivia smiled slowly, her hand resting possessively on Frank's chest. Oh, didn't you hear? We got married yesterday. Tricia gasped. You what? Frank looked away, shame clouding his face. Tricia, I'm sorry. I can't go on with our plans. She's pregnant. I had to do what's right. The room spun. Tricia's mother screamed. What madness is this? Tricia stepped forward, tears blurring her vision. Frank, look at me. After everything we shared, this is how you repay me. Frank tried to speak, but his lips trembled. Please forgive me. Olivia raised her hand, showing off a glittering gold ring. See for yourself, she said proudly. Tricia's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She felt her breath leave her body. Her legs gave way, and her father caught her before she fell. Let's go, he said coldly. We have no business here. As they walked away, Frank turned his back, tears streaming silently down his face. That night, rain poured heavily over the city. Tricia sat by her window, staring into the storm, her wedding gown still lying untouched on her bed. Her mother knocked softly. My child, please eat something. Tricia shook her head. Mama, he married my best friend. Her voice broke. The same friend who held my hand through every plan. The same man who swore to love me forever. She wept until dawn. Outside, thunder cracked across the sky, like heaven itself was angry. And far away, in a quiet village, Mama Afika's clay pot trembled where it was buried in the earth. The spirits were restless. Something dark had been done, and the universe had begun to prepare its judgment. The days after the wedding disaster felt like an endless night for Tricia. Sleep deserted her. Appetite vanished. Her once bright eyes became dull pools of sorrow. Everywhere she turned, memories haunted her. Frank's laughter, his promises, the dreams they built together. But worst of all, Olivia's smile on that day, sharp, proud, and victorious. Tricia's parents did everything to comfort her. Her mother prayed beside her bed every night. Her father grew quieter by the day, his heart breaking for his only daughter. Papa, Tricia whispered one morning, maybe I was never meant to be loved. Don't say that, my child, he said softly. Sometimes God hides blessings behind pain. But deep inside, Tricia wasn't sure she believed that anymore. Weeks turned into months. Frank and Olivia's marriage became the talk of the town, a beautiful couple flaunting wealth and luxury. Social media buzzed with their photos, matching outfits, smiling faces, fake happiness. Each picture was like a dagger to Tricia's heart. Until one night, when everything changed. It was past midnight. Tricia sat alone on her balcony, staring at the moon. The wind howled. Then suddenly, she felt it, a strange chill brushing past her skin. Her heart began to race. She looked around, no one. Then she heard it, a whisper, faint but clear. He was never his own. Tricia froze. Who said that? The whisper came again, carried by the wind. You were betrayed by shadows, not by love. Fear gripped her. She ran inside, shutting the door, her breath shaking. Was she losing her mind? But that night, she dreamed, a vivid, haunting dream. She was standing in a forest, surrounded by trees that glowed faintly in the moonlight. A woman in white appeared before her, calm, radiant, almost otherworldly. Your pain is not ordinary, the woman said. You were touched by darkness that is not yours to carry. Tricia tried to speak, but her voice was trapped. The woman continued, you do not need a pastor. You do not need a shrine. What you need is truth, and truth will set your soul free. Before Tricia could ask who she was, Lightning flashed, and the woman was gone. She woke up sweating, gasping for air, her heart pounding like a drum. The next morning, Tricia sat by the mirror, staring at her reflection. For the first time in months, she saw something different in her eyes. A spark, small but alive. "What if this isn't over?" she whispered. Something told her that what happened between Frank and Olivia wasn't natural. Something deeper, darker had taken place. And somehow, she was meant to uncover it. Later that day, Tricia visited an old art shop where she once bought traditional paintings. The old woman who owned the shop looked at her and frowned. "My daughter," the woman said quietly, "you've been walking under a strange shadow." Tricia's eyes widened. "How do you know that?" The woman smiled sadly. "Because the spirits around you are restless. One of them is crying for justice." Tricia's body trembled. "What does that mean?" "It means," the woman said, "someone bound your destiny with something not human. But don't be afraid. When light wakes, darkness trembles." Tricia swallowed hard. For the first time since her heartbreak, she felt strength stirring within her. That night, she stood before her mirror again. Her voice was steady now. "Olivia," she whispered, "you stole what was mine. But I won't sit here broken. Whatever you and your grandmother did, I will find out, and I will take back my peace." The wind blew softly through her window, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again, as if nature itself was answering her vow. Tricia's journey of pain had ended. Her journey of power had begun. The morning sun rose gently over the city, but Tricia's heart was heavy with a quiet determination. Her dream, the whispers, the old woman's words, they all pointed to one thing. Olivia's love wasn't natural. She needed answers. 2 days later, Tricia traveled to Olivia's village, the same one where she knew Olivia's grandmother lived. She told no one. She simply packed a small bag, took a public bus, and prayed silently for courage. The road was long and rough. The forest trees loomed tall and ancient, their leaves whispering secrets as she passed. When she arrived, an old man guided her to the grandmother's compound. The old woman, frail, wrinkled, yet fierce-eyed, sat outside grinding herbs. Tricia bowed slightly. "Good evening, Mama." The woman looked up slowly. "Who are you, and what do you seek here?" Tricia took a deep breath. "I am Tricia, Olivia's friend." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Ah, the one whose joy was stolen." Tricia froze. How do you know that?" The grandmother smiled, a slow, chilling smile. "Child, in this world, nothing happens without a price. Love, hate, riches, pain, all must be bought somehow." Tricia's heart pounded. "What did you do to me?" "To Frank." The woman's expression hardened. "Your friend came to me with desperation in her eyes. She wanted your man. I simply gave her the key." Tricia clenched her fists. "You destroyed 2 lives." The old woman chuckled darkly. "No, child. I only opened a door." She walked through it. As the woman turned away, Tricia's gaze caught something glimmering behind the hut. A clay pot, half buried in the earth, wrapped with red cloth and cowries. Her body stiffened. She didn't need a prophet to tell her what it was. That pot was the prison of Frank's spirit. "Stop!" the old woman shouted as Tricia ran toward it. But it was too late. Tricia fell to her knees before the pot. "So this is what destroyed my life," she whispered. The old woman raised her walking stick, her voice trembling with fury. "You touch it, you'll die." Tricia looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I'd rather die free than live in bondage." With one loud cry, she lifted the pot and smashed it against a stone. A flash of light exploded from within, blinding, fierce, and alive. The wind howled through the forest. The grandmother screamed as her staff shattered in her hands. Tricia fell backward, covering her face. And then silence. The pot was gone. Only ashes remained, carried away by the breeze. She stood trembling, breathing hard, yet strangely lighter. It was over, or so she thought. At that exact moment, in the city, Olivia screamed. Frank, sitting beside her, clutched his chest and gasped for breath. "What's happening?" he cried. Olivia fell to the floor, convulsing, her eyes rolling wildly. The mirror beside the bed cracked, and for a split second, A dark shadow escaped from her body and disappeared through the wall. Then silence. Frank slumped, weak and shaking. Slowly, his mind cleared. And suddenly, he remembered everything. The rituals, the affair, the spell, and most painfully, Tricia's tears. He buried his face in his hands, weeping like a child. The next morning, Tricia returned to the city. She was exhausted but peaceful, her heart lighter than it had been in months. When she got home, there was someone waiting outside her gate. Frank. He looked broken, his clothes rough, his eyes red from crying. As soon as he saw her, he fell to his knees. "Tricia, I don't even know where to begin," he said, his voice trembling. Something took over me. I wasn't myself. Tears welled up in Tricia's eyes. "I know. I hurt you. I ruined everything we had. But please forgive me." Tricia took a deep breath. The old pain tried to rise again, but something stronger, peace, held it back. "I already did," she said softly. "Not for you, but for me." Frank bowed his head, crying silently. "You're stronger than I ever deserved." Tricia smiled faintly. "We both paid a price. Now it's time to start over, separately." Weeks later, Frank traveled abroad for treatment and rehabilitation, seeking to rebuild his life. Olivia, however, was never the same again. Her beauty faded. Her laughter turned to murmurs. Sometimes she wandered the market barefoot, muttering to herself, calling Frank's name into the air. People pitied her, but Tricia never hated her. She only prayed silently. May she find peace, the peace she tried to steal. Months passed. Tricia's life slowly blossomed again. She began writing, turning her story into a book about heartbreak, healing, and unseen battles. One evening, as she closed her journal, she looked at the sunset and whispered, "I lost what I loved, but I found who I am." The wind blew gently, wrapping around her like an embrace. And somewhere deep in the forest, where ashes once lay, a single white flower grew, a symbol that light, once buried, will always find its way back.